Something is breaking apart in Huntsville, and this time it is not coming from the usual places or the usual faces. It begins the moment Ken and Trish stepped out at a recent event looking tense, distant, and strangely disconnected from each other. This couple, who once seemed steady and calm, now moved with a quiet heaviness that caught everyone's attention. At first, fans thought it was just a rough night or a normal moment of stress, but soon whispers began to spread. Whispers that said their marriage was hanging by a thread. And while people were still trying to understand what was happening with them, another storm was already brewing. A storm that pulled in Letitia, Kimmi, and Nell, leading to a confrontation so intense that the producers had to step in and shut everything down. The truth of what happened did not come from surface-level drama. It came from deep tension that had been building for months behind cameras, behind group smiles, and behind the scenes where viewers never get to look. Huntsville has always carried tension, but the energy surrounding the cast now feels different. It feels heavy, it feels personal, and it feels like something deeper is unraveling right in front of everyone's eyes. Behind the polished pictures and well-prepared smiles, the cast is dealing with quiet storms that no one wanted to admit. For years, Ken and Trish were seen as the calm couple in the group. They were not the ones shouting across rooms, throwing shade online, or dragging each other across social media. They always kept their issues private and stayed away from loud drama. But insiders say that the very quietness they were known for was hiding the real problem. Silence does not always mean peace. Sometimes silence is only a cover, and that silence was covering small cracks forming between them for months. Friends of the couple noticed that Ken had become distant. He would zone out during outings, stare into space, and move around as if his mind was somewhere far away from the people around him. Trish, on the other hand, tried hard to keep things normal. She held on to the image of a stable marriage. She kept her smile in place even when she felt herself breaking inside. She attended events and brushed off questions about Ken's behavior, but many people close to her knew she was hiding her worry. Everything took a sharp turn during an off-camera dinner, where the tension between them rose to a level no one could ignore. People who were present that night described the energy as cold, heavy, and almost painful to watch. Trish asked Ken why he had been so detached. Instead of bringing comfort, Ken's response made everything worse. Whatever he said left Trish shaken, confused, and deeply hurt. After that dinner, the silence that followed between them was even louder and harder than the confrontation itself. What made it worse was that rumors began spreading that Ken was struggling under pressure. He was dealing with pressure from work, pressure from the constant group issues, and pressure from emotional truths he was trying hard to hide. People close to him said he was trying to protect Trish by keeping his stress to himself. But instead, his silence pushed her away. And when the couple arrived at a major event in separate cars, fans instantly sensed something was wrong. Their body language told the entire story. They walked apart, avoided eye contact, and looked like two people forced to share the same moment rather than two people moving together. But the problems with Ken and Trish were only one part of the growing storm. Something else was happening behind the scenes, something that involved Letitia, Kimmi, and Nell. For months, their energy had been shifting in quiet ways that most fans never noticed. On camera, they looked friendly. They exchanged small talk, stood side by side in photos, and did their best to show unity. But behind the scenes, little issues kept stacking up. Unreturned calls, strange silence, secretive side conversations, subtle changes in loyalty. All of it built up slowly until everything crashed at once. It began with a small misunderstanding involving Ken and Trish. Nell was one of the first people to notice the distance between the couple. She mentioned it privately to Kimmi, thinking she was just sharing concern. Kimmi heard the comment as simple worry. But when the story reached Letitia, the meaning changed, the tone changed, the intention changed. Suddenly, it sounded like Nell was stirring the pot or saying something negative about Trish. That misunderstanding created the first spark of tension. Letitia was already dealing with pressure in her own marriage and pressure from people online, so she took Nell's comment personally. Instead of asking for clarity, she held on to it quietly. She allowed it to sit, grow, and turn into something heavier. Then Kimmi stepped in, trying to prevent the issue from turning into messy talk. But when she repeated Nell's comment to Letitia, the tone in which it reached Letitia changed even more. It sounded sharper. The words felt heavier. And that change became the moment where everything started to fall apart. Kimmi was upset because she felt she was being unfairly accused. Letitia felt she was being talked about behind her back. Nell was confused because she had no idea her simple comment was being repeated and twisted. All three women were upset. All three felt misunderstood, and all three carried their own hurt. Things finally exploded at a cast gathering that was supposed to be peaceful. No heavy talk, no drama planned. But the moment Letitia walked into the room and noticed Nell avoiding eye contact, and Kimmi heard whispers involving her name, the energy shifted instantly. The room became tight, quiet, uncomfortable. Everyone in the space felt the tension building, waiting for the first spark to hit. And it hit quickly. Letitia approached Nell in a calm but firm voice, a voice that carried warning, a voice that meant the storm was about to begin. Kimmi stepped in, trying to stop things from becoming bigger, but her attempt only made Letitia feel more attacked. The moment Kimmi tried to mediate, it made Letitia believe the two women were teaming up against her. Nell tried to explain herself, but emotions were too high. Everyone was hearing the conversation through their own hurt, their own fear, and their own frustration. Then, everything went off the rails. The confrontation became so explosive that producers had to stop the cameras and physically step in. They had to shut down filming. Insiders say the shouting became too intense, the accusations too heavy, and the emotions too raw for the show to keep recording. That moment changed the entire cast. When filming stopped, the room froze. Reality hit everyone. They stood in shock, not only because of the fight, but because of the emotions that had finally spilled out in front of everyone. Cast members whispered to each other in confusion. Some walked out quietly. Some stood still. Others exchanged looks that held more truth than any words could. Letitia left first. She walked straight to her car, furious and deeply hurt. She sat in the driver's seat staring forward, playing the scene over and over in her mind. The moment had touched wounds she tried to bury. She felt betrayed, she felt exposed, and she felt like the people she trusted had turned against her. Kimmi stayed behind, walking back and forth, trying to calm her mind. She was shaken but composed. She kept saying she never meant for things to go this far. She never wanted her words to turn into this storm. She felt she was caught in the middle but blamed as if she had created the whole thing. Nell broke down privately. She had no idea a small comment would become a wildfire. For someone who always tried to keep peace, being seen as the cause of the drama cut deep. She cried once she found a quiet spot away from the cast. She felt misunderstood and overwhelmed. While the women were dealing with their emotions, something else was happening behind the scenes. The men heard about the confrontation and stepped in. They began calling their wives, trying to understand what happened. Some felt the women were responding too emotionally. Others felt this fight was months in the making, but the men also had their own quiet tension. Their private conversations created a new divide, and when they shared their opinions with their wives, it made the situation even worse. One cast member eventually chose a side publicly, causing shockwaves all over social media. Fans were confused, cast members felt exposed, and the entire group began questioning who was loyal to who. But while all this drama was unfolding, Ken and Trish were dealing with something far deeper. Something that had nothing to do with the group and everything to do with their own marriage. After the women's confrontation, the cast broke off into smaller groups, but Ken and Trish left quietly. They walked together but felt worlds apart. The silence between them was painful, heavy, and full of unspoken truth. Trish waited by the passenger door of their car for Ken to unlock it. But Ken stood by his door, staring at the ground, and then he finally spoke. His voice was low, full of guilt. He said he was tired. Not tired of her, but tired of pretending everything was fine, tired of carrying stress alone, tired of hiding how overwhelmed he felt. He had been trying to protect Trish by keeping everything inside, but all it did was push her away. When Trish asked if they were okay, Ken could not give her an answer. His silence told her the truth before his words did. When he finally spoke, he admitted he did not know if they were okay anymore. That moment broke her inside, because it meant their marriage was in more danger than she realized. The next day, people noticed the change in their behavior. They moved together, but without connection. They acted like two people staying close, only because they did not know what else to do. While the group tried to recover from the dramatic confrontation, rumors began to swirl about Ken and Trish. Some said Ken had reached his breaking point. Others believed Trish had found out something upsetting. And soon, whispers began that a private talk between Ken and another cast member had stirred things even more. Producers became involved, trying to understand what was happening with the couple. But the more questions they asked, the more Ken shut down. He refused to open up, and that made the rumors even louder. And that is where the story stands. The cast is divided, friendships are strained, marriages are shaken, and trust within the group has been damaged in ways no one expected. The tension in Huntsville is not coming from loud drama, but from quiet storms that have been building for a long time. And now that everything has erupted, nothing will ever be the same.